And I'm ready.
Hello and welcome to the final candidate question time for the 2022 Manchester Student Union elections, hosted by Manchester Media Group, UM Student Media Platform. I'm Archie L, Head of News for the Mancunian. For the past 3 days, we've been running candidate hustings for the 8 full-time executive officer roles. Earlier today, we heard from the candidates for activities and culture, but now it's time for the final role of humanities officer. The exec officers are the top tier of the union student roles. They are full-time jobs paid £20,403 for the year to represent all students and influence their experience throughout university and the wider city. These live streams are a chance for you to meet the candidates for each role and hear them answer questions on the topics suggested by students. This year, we have 3 new roles dedicated to each academic faculty, from connecting with student reps to exercising your influence at the university. Academic committees, these officers will be at the forefront of ensuring our students have the best educational experience. So let's first of all meet our candidates. Sadly, Shi Huing Ding could not be here today, and Mia Fuel has had her answers recorded and will be played during the broadcast. But without further ado, let's first hear from Yue Dai. To start things off, each candidate will have 1 minute to give an introductory speech about themselves and their manifestos. When that time is up, I will raise my hand to indicate that they should finish at the end of their sentence. So first of all, can we have Ray?
Thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. My name is Yue Dai, and I stand here because I just came to Manchester for 1 month, but I learned a lot from the student union, the event they organized, and here I want to contribute some of my understanding about the humanitarian role, and I do want to communicate with you tonight. If you have any concerns, you can chat with me and I will answer all of your questions. My stance of the humanitarian role is about communicating patiently with students, because I am an international student, just came to here. So sometimes I feel like I need some help to while I'm studying and while I'm here. So I do need some people to hear from me and to solve my problems. So so my understanding of this role is to be patient and to solve problems from students. So yeah, I'm so glad to be here. And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. That's all right. Next up, we have Emily Turvey.
Hi, my name's Emily. I'm a third-year history student and I'm running for the humanities role. I'm currently the social media officer for the History Society. I've been on the Women in Media conference committee for the last 2 years. I'm also a writer and a designer at the Mancunian, and I work at Squirrels. So I'm very involved in Manchester student life. My main manifesto point is I really want to change the module selection process. I think it's really unfair, inaccessible, and impractical. I want to give humanities students more access to deciding how their academic pathways continue. It's really important that we get onto the modules that we want to get onto. I also think this role is new and it's an opportunity to represent humanities students and their specific needs, which are different to other faculties. Our tuition fees shouldn't be funding or subsidising other faculties, which is often the case. So I really want to be a representative for humanities students.
We're now going to go to Mia for...
Hi, my name is Mia Fuel and I'm a third year doing a BA in philosophy and politics. I have loved living in Manchester. I joined in 2019, and although COVID-19 has disrupted the 3 years I've been here, I have taken part in a number of SU societies, from a cappella to comedy society, and have just try to make the best of what I have as much as everyone else has. I actually brought my dog to Manchester to come stay with me for a bit and took him around the SU multiple times. So I'm sure a few people there might have met him and myself previously. As I come to the end of my degree, I'm still not very sure what I want to do, but what I do know is that the University of Manchester is one of the most targeted universities by employers. So as part of my manifesto, I want to help all humanities students get to know those employers, what they're looking for, and how students can be better prepared for the job market. Another key focus of my manifesto is communicating better with the students at uni. I think a lot of the times I have possibly missed opportunities or missed things from the SU because I haven't been informed myself or haven't found out about things. So I just love to increase that connection and that communication that helps that is with students, just to make sure that they have every opportunity available to them.
Lovely. Now we'll move on to Fasia.
Hi. Hello, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fasiha. I study English language and education, and I'm in my final year. My key manifesto pledges include supporting the BDS campaign on campus. Secondly, to lead efforts to get the university to divest from research and investment that support the Uyghur genocide in China. And lastly, to ensure that for every decision made at the university that concerns students, there should be nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. And we'll now hand over to our final candidate, Nathan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nathan. I'm really proud to be here today and discuss my vision for humanities and the wider university. My manifesto focuses chiefly on bringing about accountability in our senior leadership team. It's about improving module feedback to make modules work for you. It's about making mental health support more accessible. It's about improving student safety at university and beyond, with a particular aspect on making our university a leader on women's safety. It's about bringing about a greater sense of community amongst humanities. And it's also about expanding on the employment opportunities for humanities students. Let's be proud to study at Manchester. Vote for me, and we'll achieve this together.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So first up, it's time for our questions. And you'll have 1 minute to answer. And at this time, I'll raise my hand to indicate that it's time to wrap up. And you'll have to finish the sentence you're on. So question 1, MMG spoke to a number of students last week about their concerns regarding university life and mitigating circumstances. These were raised as a common issue facing students. How would each of you address this and make sure that the process is easier for students? This one, we will start with Emily.
So for assessments, mitigating circumstances, obviously really important for humanities students to be able to flag where they're not able to fulfill their assessments in the way that they wanted to, or just flag mitigating circumstances. Part of my manifesto is to improve the complaints process for DAS and invigilators. So I think part of this would link back. So making sure that students actually have the proper support in the first place, so that mitigating circumstances are the last option. I think students should be supported throughout their throughout the year and throughout their assessment process. So that they don't face these circumstances.
Lovely. Next to Fasia.
Yes, so I think mitigating circumstances is a situation that comes up quite often around exam season. And I know we've just come out of January, so this would be something that be fresh on students' mind. And that's why the concern would have come up. So when we talk about centering the student experience, sometimes it means getting those mitigating circumstances applications approved, but sometimes it also means putting them in a place where they're not as accessible as we want them to be, so that people do not take unfair advantage of them. And why this is better for students is because at the end of the day, we want to maintain the credibility of the degrees we get. We want to ensure there's a standard and credible process that is available and applicable to all, that we know that when we go out and speak to employers, when we go out and graduate with a degree, it's something that is valued and seen as something legitimate, not something that was bypassed perhaps through means other than that were legitimate. So I think, yes, a fair process is needed, but that does not necessarily mean mitigating circumstances applications, which are a free-for-all sort of business. Thank you.
Okay. Lovely. And to Nathan.
Thank you. Mitigating circumstances is a massive part of being able to, ensure that you are very well supported in your studies. From my experience, it has been very difficult to access mitigating circumstances forms, to understand how you go through the process. So I think the first thing would be to streamline the website, streamline the process, make it easier to access that, and also be able to hold direct contact with your academic advisor, with your lecturers, to ensure that they're fully aware of the situation. But I think Emily mentioned that it's also to do with beforehand, and if students are struggling with their situation, they need support through mental health and counselling services, which currently is relatively inaccessible, and also with academic support and ensuring that they're supported throughout their studies and not when they get to a crisis point.
Perfect. And finally to UA.
Very much. I think for different people, they have different understanding about this issue. And I think not all of the students have a deep understanding of the process and the term meaning. So maybe like in our role, people, we can send emails and we can like put a site post in the website. So like students can get familiar with the process of the whole mitigating circumstance. So this is the first step. And the second step is we need some staffs like to engage with students and to catch up the whole process. So it's not about like the whole things you just give to students and let them to investigate what exactly it is, but some people can guide them patiently. You know, like if they like meet some problems, people can give some suggestions and find the ways to solve it out. So yeah, that's my answers.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And Tamia.
I do think that mitigating circumstances is a very important issue, and I think especially with COVID-19 still having a very large impact on people, not only with COVID, but just mental health in general being such a huge issue. I think it's important to make the process of obtaining mitigating circumstances easier and more available to students. I think a lot of people don't know the process. I know when I applied for my mid-circs, it was sort of easy, but I wasn't sure about it. And yeah, I think it's definitely something that we need to focus on. I don't think it needs to be just about mental health. I think, well, mental health obviously is a key part of it, but physical health, any type of health or any concern, we need to be able to have mitigating circumstances as something that people can fall back on and rely on if they need to.
Perfect. Now to our second question. And that's that some students feel that the fees for humanities often end up funding other departments rather than being invested into humanities courses themselves. What aspects of the humanities faculty do you feel deserves more support, and how would you aid this development? We will start with Asia.
The first thing I would love to see is a humanities building that rivals the engineering building. I think that'd be beautiful to start off with. Secondly, I think while, yes, other courses get investments for labs and research and all the rest of it, I think humanities, it's often not seen as, the degrees are not seen as profitable in an economical sense as perhaps some other degrees. And so recently we've seen funding cuts from the government, and of course, then it is expected that universities will also cross-subsidize. So I think one thing I would love to see is that humanities degrees being respected and being upheld as something worthy of doing, not just because education can necessarily bring about economic benefits, but also because they're important for the development of society. They provide transformational experiences. So just seeing that, investment to see that, okay, we are driving more people into the arts, into the humanities, not necessarily because they can get good jobs, but also because they become good global citizens of the world. And God knows we do need a lot of them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And actually this time we'll go to UA.
Thank you for the question. I actually think during the lecture, what I learned the most is from the office hour and the communication with classmates and lecturers. So from the quality of studying, I think the fee, like the funding should go to like the office hour, like when the lecturer pay more attention to office hour and give organize more events for students to do some workshops. I think it's worth to pay for this kind of organization and contribute more time with students. And I also think in the lectures, maybe students can come up some great idea. They do some little experiments, and that I think it also worth some funding from it. So that's what I think. Engaged put the funding to the class design. Yeah, thank you very much.
Perfect. I'll go to Emily.
Yeah, I think this speaks to a really important issue about, like you said, humanities degrees being respected. A huge number, I think it's roughly 40% of students at the University of Manchester are humanities students. So it's really, really important that we are being properly resourced and funded, and our tuition fees are going towards something. You hear people talking about an expensive library membership. That is not what our tuition fees should be for. So specifically in my manifesto, I've pledged about addressing additional costs that aren't associated with or understood to be issues of humanities students. So, for example, books, English literature students, for example, American studies, they have to buy so many course texts, which if you look in the Faculty of Engineering, in kind of the equivalent, they're not funding that themselves. So I really think this is something specifically that needs to be addressed. And also more funding for careers. I really think we should be integrating careers into the syllabus, and and that within itself needs to be resourced properly, because there's a huge amount of careers that we can go into as humanities students.
Lovely, thank you. And now we'll go to a clip from Mia.
I think part of the support that humanities students need are for knowing what to do after they graduate. And I think more funding needs to be going into, again, mentioned in my manifesto, connecting students and their professors better, and giving them more opportunities in a wider range of jobs. I think a lot of the time we focus on jobs that are straightforward jobs, whereas when you're a humanities student, this isn't so straightforward, and students want to take part in a wide range of different jobs from different employers. So I think more funding needs to be going into knowing how to support students once they have graduated and getting them in contact with people and jobs that they may be more interested in.
And now we'll get to our third and final question. Within humanities, sorry, Nathan, that was my fault. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is a massive point, and Emily really hit the nail on the head when she talks about subsidising fees in her manifesto. Our faculty is massive. We deserve the resources. We deserve the funding. It shouldn't be going to other areas or faculties in the university. For me, a big one is employment opportunities. I think we need our university to offer us a greater sense of direction when it comes to post-graduation life and settling into maybe it could be a placement or an internship or whatever people choose to do post-graduation. But I think there's a lot more work to be done for humanities students to realise their potential in terms of what they can do with the university post-graduation. That could be getting in touch with the Career Service or Manchester Graduate Talent, which is a new scheme that's been set up. And those are the areas that I would work on to ensure that post-graduation humanities students feel they've got a sense of security when it comes to seeking and looking for new opportunities.
Lovely. Let's try that again. For the third and final question, within humanities, there also seems to be differing access to facilities than some other courses, with the Alliance Business School not being accessible to all students. What are your thoughts on the current facilities and equipment available to humanities students? Some will start with Nathan.
Thank you. I mean, it's so inconsistent, the humanities buildings. You've got some buildings that are brand new and accessible and look fantastic, and you've got others that look like they were built in the 1850s. What we need is a basis for accessibility across all buildings in humanities, a situation where every student can access the resources that they need. And that's something that I'm particularly keen on doing. And I just think the way that we do that is by having a look at the buildings that are currently in use by the humanities faculty and realising which ones need to improve and which ones need to be more accessible, and coming up with a roadmap of how we do that.
Lovely, thank you so much. This time we'll go to Jay.
Thank you. First of all, I think you have to know the facilities usage so that you get engaged to that kind of equipment and services. But there's a big problem for our students. Our English is our first language is not English, so maybe we are not familiar with what the equipment for. So I think maybe some instruction for the equipment and like how to use it is very needed for our international students. And the second point is some facilities are like open to like undergraduate students specifically, and maybe like postgraduate students and PhD, some other degrees may not like have opportunities to get access to. So I think maybe the classroom and some events can like open to the both undergraduate and postgraduate and even PhD. So like we can all get into it. And I myself get enrolled to a undergraduate course. I think it's very helpful. So, thank you.
Lovely. Now we're going to cut to Mia.
For me, having something like the business school available to myself isn't something that I would probably take advantage of. However, I do think it's important and fair for all humanities students to have the same sort of access to similar resources. I think the business school is a huge and good part of the university, and for other degrees in the humanities department, not to have these kinds of facilities is something that we need to look at. And yeah, I think it's important to create a fair society. I'm a huge fan of ethics, and I think that is something that we need to work on. The facilities that we have at the moment, I think, are okay, but I think seeing some humanities degrees have more facilities or more helpers, where we need to sort of make it a fairer system within all humanities degrees.
Lovely. And now we will go to Emily.
I think this new role offers an opportunity for there to be more cohesion across the Faculty of Humanities, which I think is really important, especially for the individual schools that make up the faculty. And I think that relates in terms of the resources and equipment and facilities available to us. So, for example, the business school is actually only available to business students, or if you're doing a business module. But I think if you're a humanities student, as in the same way that engineering students, you should have access to everything that's within your faculty. So I really want to encourage reviewing the process of whether, with business school, especially given the library. I've heard of students before not being able to get out a book from the business school library because it's the business school and they're part of a different school. So I really want to, as part of this role, create greater cohesion between the schools that make up the humanities, and I think that relates to the resources available to us. Also, again, in terms of books, not to come back to it, but humanities students, it is relevant and it's an additional cost, and it's something that's not talked about in the same way that the Faculty of Science, Engineering, or Biology, Medicine, and Health is. I think it's important. Thank you.
Good. And now for our final candidate, Fasia.
So you touched upon AMBS in your question, and I do feel, yes, there's this sense of elitism there, something like that at play, although there would need to be a sort of, I would need to sort of look at it in more detail to see why exactly those access differences exist. But definitely it's like, okay, I'm an AMBS student now. I get to go in and you just stand out and wait for me while I get out of my module. So there's definitely that sense of play there. And that's unfortunate, and I believe that shouldn't exist. But secondly, a key priority of mine, because it comes from experience, it comes from putting my ear to the ground and knowing that this exists, is when it comes to access and equipment and facilities, is the fact that we've got 15% of the student population on campus is Muslim. That is 8,000 students. And in the Islamic faith, praying 5 times a day is a basic religious requirement. But the university has been very, very frustrating and annoying in the sense that they have not provided for prayer spaces in the main library in LEG, although hundreds of students have been advocating for this over the past decade. And this is something that I would want to see become available across buildings in the humanities and in the libraries.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So that's all we have for questions. You've now got a chance to make a closing statement or just to talk about something you haven't had a chance to cover yet. We'll start. Your way.
Yeah, it's very glad to come here because it's a new experience for me to stand for a humanitarian role and to run a campaign and like to communicate with you about some feedback to our university. Actually, as an international student and a postgraduate student, I learned a lot from the student union. I like brought in my social network and I improved my English level and learned a lot of fascinating knowledge in my discipline. So here I want to contribute is there are lots of people like me are like international students and come to here maybe cannot speak fluent English, but just like get off the comfort zone and to try to make some change. So like you will have a new experience. And I also want to call for some attention to the postgraduate students because we don't have sufficient support in Korea. And like what we have to, if we want to pursue another academic career, what should we do next? So yeah, thanks for this opportunity to express this problem. And I hope like we have some method to solve it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And now to Emily.
I think this opportunity, because it is a new role, the education officer has been split into 3 roles. It's just a really exciting opportunity to actually represent humanities students. I'm like very much involved in the student community, whether through the History Society, the Women in Media Conference, the Mancunian, or its squirrels. And I really want to help make change. And I think I'm a good listener. I think I'm a good speaker. And I want to help my fellow students, and I have direction in that. I really, really want to update the module selection process. This is something I'm really passionate about. I think it's just important for determining our degrees and our careers. You know, I've spoken to students before who've only been able to access 2 out of the 6 of their final 3rd-year modules, which I just think is wrong. And I really, really want to change that. And also to increase accessibility. So to make all set reading accessible by screen readers for DAS students and non-DAS students, and to address additional costs such as books, because we should not be subsidizing other faculties. The Faculty of Humanities is important. Thank you.
Right, now I'm going to go to Nathan.
Thank you. And thanks for listening to me today. If anyone would like to get in touch about my campaign or discuss my manifesto further, then please follow me on Instagram at Hodgson for Humanities, and I'd be happy to hear your ideas and thoughts. I think it's time that humanities got the proper representation that it deserves, and that's something that I will fight for, and I will always fight for your interests, and ultimately vote for me, and I will add some humanity to humanities.
Lovely, thank you very much. Now to Fasia.
I think one of my pet peeves when it comes to the student union is that the layers of bureaucracy, the unnecessary red tape, the slow processing of things. And I think the fact that you sometimes just have 1 year as a society or as a student rep to do what you want to do, and then this unnecessary long time that it takes to get things done can be very frustrating. It can bog down progress. So when it comes to student reps, I think one thing that I can commit to, hopefully, is that, you know, just making sure that I'm accessible, I'm there, I'm committed, and to make sure that the good work that student reps want to do is not unnecessarily bogged down by just endless paperwork and forms. Yeah, I look forward to that.
Lovely, thank you. And now we're going to get to Mia.
I think I would just like to reiterate how important supporting students is in their life once they graduate is to me, as well as maintaining this relationship that we have with not only our professors and our teachers, but our student executive team as well. I'm just looking at my manifesto here, sorry. I think that allowing students to have a medium to voice their concerns is important, which is why I suggested in my manifesto perhaps having drop-in sessions with students or members so they can come in and talk. Throughout COVID, it's been really hard to communicate in person with people, and now that the restrictions are sort of easing, I think that it is important to maintain the in-person relationship with our students to enhance this bond, not only with humanities students, which obviously is my main concern, but with students in general throughout the whole of the university. And yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. Well, there's your lot. Thank you to all the candidates who joined us the past few days. And thank you to everyone behind the camera who we haven't got to see over the past few days, but has made this possible. You can find every single person here's candidate manifesto and the other ones for other roles at manchesterstudentsunion.com/leadmcr. Voting opens at 10 a.m. on Monday for exec officers and associate chair elections, with the results to be announced on March 11th. Don't miss your chance to have a say.